Hello. So if anyone has questions throughout, please feel free to raise your hand and yell at us and let us know. So my name is Elizabeth K. Joseph, and I, along with Sarah, we founded the Linux Distributions Working Group last October, and we're here to talk to you a bit about it. My role is a developer advocate for IBM Z Systems and Linux One at IBM. And Sarah, would you like to introduce yourself?
I am a DevOps specialist at Accenture, and besides of that, I'm contributing to OpenSUSE as a team lead for OpenSUSE systems. I'm doing packaging stuff, QA, and communication stuff with our company, SUSE and IBM.
Great. All right, so we'll just jump right in here. So we launched the Linux Distribution Working Group, as I said, back in October. It was kind of an evolution of a working group we had previously, which was around Debian. And the Debian Linux distribution was hoping to attract more contributors and create a more vibrant ecosystem. And then we met Sarah, and she was like, hey, I'm working on OpenSUSE. And my thought at that point was like, maybe we shouldn't have separate working groups, but instead have a single working group for all the Linux distributions. And Sarah agreed, so we launched this. So the idea is that we want to, as you can see, oversee the health and maintenance of the S390X ports for the Linux distributions, and making sure that the architecture remains supported across a bunch of Linux distributions. So we meet regularly and collaborate on whatever we're working on. So I wanted to do a quick introduction to what a Linux distribution is. So it's essentially a collection of software built on top of the Linux kernel, predominantly using GNU tools. So this is like a tool set that creates a user environment. And it all comes together to create this operating system. So it's then used on desktops and servers. My Android phone has a Linux kernel, so I think technically that's a Linux distribution. So, and so it just has all these uses. So you end up with all of these different Linux distributions tailored to specific things. And that's why there's a lot of them. And so how they usually collaborate is they tend to pull in the same software. So everyone uses a lot of the same command line tools. They use a lot of the same GUIs. It's just a matter of what versions they pull in and how they assemble that into their distribution. So they work collaboratively on those projects that they all use. And then they also do things like there's a open source security mailing list, so they collaborate on that. There's like a secret mailing list for Linux distributions. That's like a subset of the security list, which can share security vulnerabilities just among the Linux distribution leads who have proven that they are affiliated with a distribution. And finally, they do knowledge sharing at industry events like this one, but also through special interest groups and working groups like the one that we created for us. So we have a representative from OpenSUSE. So she's going to talk to you a little bit about how collaboration has helped this working group and how the distributions work together.
Most of you know already the enterprise distributions were supported by IBM, RHEL, SLES, and Ubuntu. But Red Hat has founded the community distribution Fedora, and SUSE has founded the community distribution OpenSUSE. That is the reason behind that, both enterprise distributions are using the community distribution as a foundation, and they are collaborating together with it. So you can watch RHEL as a fork of Fedora with enterprise support and stabilization, the same as SLES is a fork of OpenSUSE with enterprise support and stabilization. Ubuntu is also not alone. They are using Debian as a foundation, as a community distribution. Therefore, they are all developing based on community distributions. Then we have got relationships between the community distributions. Elisabeth told you that we are using kernel, the Linux kernel, we are using GNU tools and everything else. Therefore, if we are all using the same foundations, you can also contribute for one software to multiple Linux distributions. Why not? Therefore, we have got the relationship between these community distributions. We have got people who are cross-community members, and that is the name for people who are contributing to multiple Linux distributions. From there, we are contributing also to upstream. Therefore, is also the upstream development part here. GitHub is the GitHub icon is for all the projects on GitHub which are included to our community distributions. Then we have got the Linux kernel, GNU tools, and KVM as example. So we are sharing our software, contributing upstream, and with that we are integrating also the upstream development. Yes, from that we are coming to the topics why we need a place to collaborate. Architectures tend to have 6 or working groups, and now we want to do that also together. Therefore, we want to collaborate together to improve the support, that we share our knowledge and have got one place where we can discuss problems and provide solutions together then. Here you can see also all involved Linux distributions. We started with OpenSUSE, Fedora, and Debian. SUSE is our sponsor partner. Red Hat is supporting us. Elisabeth reached out to Debian that we want to include them. I reached out to Fedora, and after some presentations, Alma Linux and Rocky Linux have joined this year, and Ubuntu has also joined equally to the same time at the beginning of the year. We have got one mailing list for collaboration, and we have got monthly meetings where we can discuss our problems and solutions. If we have got anything on the mailing list and anybody wants to join, he is receiving also the invitation via the mailing list. And then we have got our meeting and we can discuss our issues, if they impact also other Linux distributions, and if any other Linux distribution had already a solution, this Linux distribution is distributing it. We help also with infrastructure requirements. If any issues in our build service or anything else is happening, Elisabeth is providing infrastructure solutions. And yes, when we have got also IBM developers available, Ulrich Weigand as an example from the Böblingen lab, and when we are receiving support with porting efforts at IBM from the tools team then. From that, we are coming to the benefit of collaboration. We want to have upstream contributions available for all and not for one Linux distribution. With that, we have got also lower research and development costs that counts for IBM and the community. And afterwards, we have got same solutions for all Linux distributions, what makes it also easier to maintain. We have got an environment for sharing knowledge between the communities, and with that we can also increase innovation because we have got diverse community ideas. Every Linux distribution has got his own thinking, and we can bring that all together at one place. The results. I told you before that it would lowering also costs And with that, we have got also a better performance because we have got a cooperative behavior with one approach for all. We share our work and our solutions. We are no competitors where we are open together. And with that, we have got also time for other things and to have additional ideas and how to do all better. We have got also a heterogeneity of participants that is life-giving. We are doing the maintenance together, bring same solutions for all, and that is also a cooperation as interaction then. With that, we are coming to the topic inclusion. We bring the communities and the companies together. We have got enterprise distributions available. We have got community distributions available. We have got the architecture company IBM available. So we do not exclude any Linux distribution. Everybody is welcome. That is also what we want to forward to the outside. We want to integrate every Linux distribution and want to show that everybody can join. And with that, we create open source diversity. On this way, we are receiving also more ideas how to improve our software and to do anything better.
All right, so I wanted to give you some concrete examples of ways that we've collaborated over the past 11 months or so. So this one, Sarah brought up a build issue that they were having in OpenSUSE. So it was just, she just shared a build log during one of our monthly meetings. And she hadn't really looked into it, I think. You were just like, oh, this thing broke recently and it's top of mind at the moment. So Ulrich on the IBM side, he looked into it real quick while we were on our meeting, and he's like, you know, a patch went in a year ago. This should be fixed by now. So again, on the same call, Dan from Fedora, he looked into it and he's like, yeah, this works on Fedora, but oh wait, there's a patch that we're using. And it turns out this patch is very small. I think it was just like a flag that you had to pass when you're building the package. And so it was really simple. But to give you some idea of what it's like to debug packages on a Linux distribution, first you have to look at the build failure. Then you have to figure out what the issue is. And of course, since the maintainers of these distributions are working with hundreds of packages, you know, they're not like, we may not be intimately familiar with something like the XRDP client. And so first you have to sort of get familiar with the software. We maybe don't know the flags that need to be passed or are supposed to be passed. So this could have been something that would take, you know, 3 hours to debug, and then you discover it's really just you need to pass a different flag. So by having this meeting and having Dan's input of like, this is what we did in Fedora, this issue was solved like at that meeting immediately. And that was super valuable, and that's really what we're trying to bring here. Another one, this one was actually just from like a week ago. And this is not one necessarily that we have a solution to just yet, because this was from September 14th. But again, Dan over in the Fedora project, he brought up an issue with the decompiler. And there's, you know, certain support in Power, but there's not support in GCC, and they're kind of looking for a consolidated tool chain, and so they're hoping to get that full support. And again, Ulrich, he works at IBM on the Linux tools team, and they were not aware of this issue. So by, again, having this working group, he was made aware of an issue that existed, and he was able to loop in Peter and Andreas. He is here. And to say like, hey, are you aware of this? Is this something you're working on? And then you know, hopefully we'll get to a good place at some point. But again, it's really just about raising awareness and bringing up issues with each other. Did you see this email? It works already?
Oh,
all right. Nice. It is a success. All right, there we go.
Let's see how fast process is.
It's very fast. Okay. All right. So this one's one of my favorites because it's mine. No, I'm just kidding. So I was on Twitter as I am, and one of the maintainers for Alpine Linux S390 export happened to post that they were like really fed up with S390X or something. I don't know. They were just like, I'm done with this. We're not going to do the port anymore. I don't have enough support. So I jumped into action and recruited the team. So what we ended up seeing was they had created a bug saying that they're going to drop S390X support from Alpine. The reason Alpine is important is because a lot of container images use that, so we're using it in a lot of the container stuff that we're doing. So we really didn't want to see this happen. Now, in their bug report, they're like, Rust doesn't work, IBM's not helping us, and other things. And we kind of... So Rust does work. It was a component of Rust build that wasn't working. And again, the tools team, like, they weren't really aware of this, or it wasn't made a priority until this arose. So I was able to bring this up at a meeting at the Linux Distributions Working Group, and then Uli looked into it. And then about 4 months after they worked on it, they fixed the issues with Rust build, everything was looking good. He posted, he's like, everything's good, it's merged, it's fixed, and they did not drop S390X from Alpine. Yay! And then the last one I want to talk about, we've got Dan here again. So he brought up an issue with OpenGDK back in June. And it was just a simple mail to the mailing list. He was like, hey, this needs attention. And within a few weeks, Tyler Steele, who works in the OpenGDK team at IBM, he was able to put in a patch, and that fixed it. And that was very nice. So I want to hear Sarah's input in this as well, because I didn't really add much to this slide about what's next. And I also wanted to spend some time today talking to people here at this event and sort of get some more ideas, which I have. So this is our first draft of our slide, and the rest is in progress. But for the first thing is continuing to do what we do. We're doing a really good job, it turns out. We're solving each other's problems, we're getting to know each other. And you know, Linux distributions, we've always collaborated with each other, but this formal working group is really taking it to the next level. And we also, actually, as Sarah's mentioned, we want to recruit every distribution that has an S390 export. So that means actually bringing someone in from Alpine. And there's, I think Gen2 has a port. I don't know if it works, but if it does, or if it doesn't, maybe we can help them out. So bringing more distributions in. And then the other thing I had an idea for, with talking with people today, was bringing in some more of the upstream projects. So there are projects that we bump into recently, or frequently, that have bugs and are used extensively on Z system, Linux on Z systems and Linux One. So maybe our next step is going to be bringing in some upstream projects and seeing if we can work directly with them to solve bugs and make sure that we're in their CI system, so we don't find out about the bugs when we're trying to build them. We want to find out about the bugs before they even get to the distribution by being included in their own CI system. So that should be another one. Do you have other thoughts about what we should be doing?
That is also the reason why I have included this slide about the collaboration between enterprise and community distributions with upstream projects. That is the way how we are working as community distributions. We are working upstream, and all will be included there. And it is really nice if we can receive also feedback by upstream projects.
Which brings us to your part of the presentation. So we have some resources out there. So this wiki page, it has all of the resources for our project. So if you're interested in getting involved, that has links to our mailing list, which is also here, the Slack channel. It has all of our meeting notes, which is what I scoured to find our success stories. So that'll show you like everything that we've been doing for the past several months. And that's pretty much where you will find anything. So I know we went through that rather quickly, 10, 20 minutes. So if anyone has questions, please go ahead. Quiet room.
Are there any new distros that you see coming on the platform?
The question was whether we saw new distros coming on the platform. So Alma Linux and Rocky Linux did not exist before, so their first releases are S390X. Alpine is actually a somewhat recent, I mean, it's within the past few years, just because of the container explosion, really, is like they reported. But for the most part, not really. I mean, OpenSUSE, yeah.
OpenSUSE will receive additionally Linux distributions, SUSE also, SUSE Micro. I don't know whether you have heard about it, or SLE Micro, sorry. That is a foundation Linux distribution for containerization, and OpenSUSE will receive the same with the name OpenSUSE Micro OS. In my case, I have to enable all the tests for OpenSUSE Micro OS, but you can expect that in November or something like that, SUSE will provide a SLE Micro. Additionally, therefore, that will be an additional Linux distribution. I can look how I can add it to my working time or studying time besides my job, that I can enable it.
Other questions?
Does more distributions, what's the benefit of that? Is there more, you see more packages hitting the platform then? Like, then there's maybe more people trying to get packages on the platform?
Yeah, the question was what's the benefit of more distributions? Joining the working group or just in general? In general. I mean, having a more diverse ecosystem is helpful, but it also is, they do have slightly different packages, especially like the version numbers will differ between different distributions. And they also have different audiences. I mean, obviously we're looking mostly at an enterprise audience here, but it helps to have more options on the platform. And it helps for the credibility of the platform as well, just adding in more, like when you see all these distributions are putting, their effort and time into this, it's a big help.
You can receive also more users with it. I would say, because every Linux distribution has got his own users, and everybody has got a preferred Linux distribution. And from that, you can provide a new architecture in another Linux distribution, and then you can receive a new audience, and perhaps they want to test it also on the mainframe and play with it on it. So you can receive also new users if you are adding an additional Linux distribution.
All right, I'll give you some time back. Thanks, everybody.